What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? 49 coming at you another community shoutcast for the AGI Gaming Dota 2 National Tournament, loading into game number 1 of a best of 3 in the losers bracket round 1. Team AGI up against SSCT. So Team AGI led by their captain Dinosaur, who's actually the tournament organizer, so he's the man responsible for the AGI tournament. He's going to be drafting up against NZ Rain, first ban Doom, as well as the first ban Batrider coming out, as well as the Tinker. So Team AGI, they do not want to take any chances with the Tinker's global map presence, especially if he's not contested early on in lane on the early stages of the game. Once he picks up his booster travels and his Blink Dagger, he becomes so damn difficult to dislodge, and he's able to create space for the rest of his team just by picking up farm split pushing, similar to a Naga Siren. Doom being first banned out from Team SSCT. They're deliberating on their second ban. They're not too sure who they want to let through into the first picking stage. And Invoker as well as Lycanthrope still are available, as well as the Pandarian Brewmaster and the Faceless Void. These are very powerful heroes in the current metagame. But Lycanthrope has tapered off a lot, especially with the recent imbalance rework with his Shapeshift, reducing, no longer giving the extra amount of bonus HP, as well as the fact that teams have learned to better counteract the Lycanthrope, for instance, with the buff to Tidehunter's Anchor Smash now being a 60% damage reduction at all levels. Tidehunter can be a very powerful hero to send offlane against a Lycanthrope, or you could simply decide to clash Tri-v-Tri. Lycanthrope in the Tri-v-Tri situation during the laning phase actually has very little laning presence. His wolves don't really start to become dangerous until level 3, level 4 onwards. And if he decides to opt for a max Hell build, that really limits his effectiveness. So they decide to ban out the Invoker. Invoker as well, one of those heroes that has been quite significantly nerfed with the latest patch. Cold Snap used to deal 30 damage at level 1, and was one of the reasons why Invoker was so powerful in lane, is he could trade last hits with you, use it to trade harass since he has Quas regen to sustain him, and utilize the Cold Snap to go in for kill attempts, especially if he decides to go for the Quas Exalt Zoo build. Once he gets 2 Forged Spirits, the constant Cold Snap proc, followed up with the negative armor from the Forged Spirits, is enough to ensure a kill, especially if you're able to combo that with a Sunstrike. Now with Quas only dealing 7 damage, per level of Quas, a lot less damage at level 1 in the early stages of the game. It does mean a lot more damage in the ultra late stages of the game, but since Quas is usually the last regen to be leveled up, it's quite a significant nerf to Invoker's laning presence. Lich first pick by Team AGI, so they're giving away a lot of top tier heroes such as the Tidehunter, the Brewmaster, and even the Lycanthrope if Team SSCT decide to draft them. They've got first and second pick. And yeah, they go for the Lycanthrope. We could be seeing something like a Dazzle. It synergizes very well with the Lycanthrope, especially since it mitigates Lycanthrope's weaknesses in lane, which is low survivability due to him having no escape mech. That Shallow Grave can ensure that Lycanthrope doesn't die in the early stages of the game. Weave drastically increases DPS. Instead, they go for the much more reliable Shadow Shaman, who provides a huge amount of Death Ball pushing capability with the Mass Serpent Wards. Also provides a fair amount of split pushing. And Shadow Shaman on his own, if the rest of his team, the map is relatively clear with the enemy team all clustered up elsewhere, can drop Mass Serpent Wards, at least pressure and force TPs, or otherwise you could take a tower. Lycanthrope and Shadow Shaman, pretty standard support duo. Lycanthrope, we could be seeing another support hero like a Dazzle to synergize with them just because it mitigates Lycan's weaknesses, or they could be going for a much more aggressive lineup if they pick up someone like a Visage. Visage synergizes really well to Lycanthrope because Howl propagates to the Visage Familiars. The Visage Familiars attack extremely quickly, 3 attacks a second, and if it wasn't for the fact that their base damage is 10 with the majority of the damage coming from the 7 stacks, they actually deal a substantial amount of DPS. It's one of the reasons why Lycanthrope works so well with the Visage. The Howl provides that extra base amount of damage, but Ancient Apparition and Lich being picked up from AGI, with the Song of Ice and Fire coming out from them, all they need now is a Dragon Knight. You can start screaming fire and blood. Ancient Apparition works very well with the Lich, despite the fact that they lack any hard CC, just because of the fact that there's so much damage coming up between the two of them. Cold Feet means that if they stay in place for too long, especially with the Lich's Frostbite to help set it up, you've got a free disable coming out from that. The Chilling Touch hurts like hell, especially with the fact that Lich moves incredibly quickly for a support hero, 315 movement speed, 600 range, so does the Ancient Apparition, and the Ancient Apparition's got 300 movement speed with the 600 range, so you can just right click down their support hero, such as the Shadow Shaman, who's a lot slower and a lot weaker. Nyx Assassin and Crystal Maiden being banned out. Crystal Maiden synergizes well with that lineup, even though she doesn't necessarily give you the strongest laning presence unless she synergizes with another powerful support hero. Crystal Maiden Shadow Shaman is an incredibly powerful support duo because you've got the Crystal Nova to help set up the Shackle or the Hex, and then it also provides the mana regeneration to fulfill Shadow Shaman as well as Lycanthrope's mana issues in the early stages of the game. Faceless Void being banned out immediately, fearing that teamfight combination, especially with the Lich and the Ancient Apparition. Bit surprised they didn't choose to go for the Faceless Void as a secondary pickup, since Ancient Apparition is very rarely banned. Tidehunter being picked up as the offlane hero. A good offlane choice in this case, just because I know there's a lack of hard CC coming out from Team AGI, so Tidehunter is going to be very difficult to bring him down. That being said, if he eats too many right clicks, especially with a chilling touch, he will pop, so he has to play very safe and very defensive. Tidehunter synergize as well to Lycanthrope, because the Death Ball lineup that you get from having a Lycanthrope is reliant on winning fights, and Tidehunter provides you a huge amount of teamfight presence with the Ravage. He also, if he's in the offlane position, can choose to actually rush a mech first instead of rushing a Blink Dagger, so he can provide you a lot more sustainability, in which case you simply group up, try to force a tower. When they go on you, you use the Ravage defensively, and you can turn around and go in for a kill attempt, especially with the Mass Serpent wards. Ember Spirit being banned out from Team AGI, so fearing that split pushing capability from Ember Spirit, who could create space just by being so damn hard to kill. With the Fire Remnant, it's incredibly difficult to sneak up on the Ember Spirit, similar to a Naga Siren. If you try to catch him out, all he has to do is zip out to one of his remnants, or in Naga Siren's case, use the Song of the Siren and TP out. AGI really deliberating on their third pickup. A lot of conventional melee offlaners, such as the Clockwork or the Centaur Warrunner, actually fare very poorly up against the Tidehunter. And so if they decide to clash Tri-v-Tri, Tidehunter will absolutely destroy the Centaur Warrunner, just because Centaur Warrunner, the majority of his damage comes from his stats, and so that means his base damage is the primary form for him being the last hit. Tidehunter's Anchor Smash completely mitigates that by reducing 60% of his base attack. Since Centaur Warrunner's damage is so intrinsically tied with his stats, it means that he'll have a very difficult time last hitting, so Tidehunter can out-CS and out-deny him, getting that level advantage. And they go incredibly greedy with the Nature's Prophet, so it could actually be a 4 or 5 position Tidehunter. The only disadvantage of having a support position Tidehunter as opposed to an offlane Tidehunter is the fact that your Shadow Shaman is also a very greedy support hero, and Tidehunter, he's not actually able to accomplish all too much unless he has a lot of gold, a fair amount of gold as well as a fair amount of EXP. You want Tide to get Arcane Boots up as soon as possible just to mitigate his mana issues. You want him to get a Blink Dagger so he can land those point blank Ravages, and then you also want to pick up something like a Shiva's Guard or a Refresher Orb to give yourself a lot more teamfight presence, just because if Tidehunter is able to get a fair amount of EXP, if he's able to get that maxed out Anchor Smash, he actually can be quite a threat, especially during team fights. If he's able to hit multiple heroes with the Anchor Smash, it's a huge amount of consistent damage coming out. 225 damage in a large AoE every 4 seconds is nothing to sneeze at. Luna being picked up as a hard carry for Team AGI, so it's a very powerful, aggressive tri-lane coming out from them. Luna is a great hero to counteract the Lycanthrope, because Lycanthrope's weakest in the laning phase, and Luna is the strongest in the laning phase, just because her Lucent Beam gives her a great way to catch the heroes out of position. It's a 0.6 second stun, can mean that it forces the enemy hero to stutter step. Lich follows up with the Frost Blast, you walk up, you whack him down. Luna Blessing, especially in conjunction with a Chilling Touch, provides obscene amounts of damage, and considering the fact that Team AGI have a triple range tri-lane, huge amount of damage coming out from them. Nature's Prophet could be the offlaner, or if they decide to be very greedy, he could be the jungler, and Tidehunter could actually go mid, in which case you have a dual lane with the Shadow Shaman, as well as the Lycanthrope. Maybe if you want to pick up another support hero. That does have a lot of strength to it as well. Tidehunter is a fairly effective mid hero, but it really is dependent on the matchup. Nature's Prophet also can go mid, so they do have that flexibility in switching it up. If they do, however, decide to have Nature's Prophet jungle, Tide offlane, and then they pick a mid hero, that means they've got a dual lane with Lycan the Shadow Shaman. And so if Team AGI decide to clash Tri-v-Tri, they could really punish the greed coming out from SSCT. And Puck being banned out, so they're fearing that combination coming out with the Dream Coil, especially with Luna. You never want to give them any kind of heroes that could manipulate positioning when the enemy team has a hero like a Lich or a hero like a Luna, just because Eclipse as well as the Chain Frost will completely tear the enemy team apart. And it's a Death Ball lineup. They're dependent on winning the early engagements, taking as many towers as possible while they have the edge, and snowballing that advantage. If they fall behind, they do have to late game secure with the split pushing power coming out from the Lycan as well as Nature's Prophet. But that being said, they want to make sure that they get the support as much farm as possible when they can, the early stages of the game, since the Nature's Prophet as well, the Shadow Shaman as well as the Tidehunter, especially if he's been played in the support position role, they need a fair amount of farm to be effective. So it'll be interesting to see what build Nature's Prophet chooses to go for. We have been seeing the Bulldog build, which has been used a lot more, especially in pub games, just because of the fact that it's a lot more reliable and a lot more consistent than going for either the Necronomicon, which provides a huge amount of gold if you feed them, or if you go towards the Shadow Blade, which can be countered by Dust of Appearance or Sentry Wards. So going into the Treads, the Maelstrom, then to the Blink Dagger provides you with a much more consistent split push, since if the enemy team tries to rotate on you, you blink into trees, TP out, there's nothing they could do to counteract that. Picking up an early Maelstrom means that you could tear apart the enemy heroes and these early engagements just because you could teleport in behind them, walk up, sprout one, start whacking them away, and utilize the damage from the Maelstrom to either get a few kills. So Bane Elemental being the last man, so Team AGI believing that there could be a Nature's Prophet mid, but instead it's a Death Prophet, so they're going for an all-out push strat from Team SSCT. So Death Prophet mid, looks like the Nature's Prophet's going to be in the off lane, and we're going to be seeing a support Tide in conjunction with the Shadow Shaman as well as the Lycan. If they are able to get the ball rolling with a lot of kills, and they've got it for a Phantom Assassin, so we're going to be seeing some RTZ mid PA shenanigans from the look of it, unless they're going to decide to send the Luna mid. Very unlikely, so it looks like the Centaur Warrunner going to be in the off lane, Luna tri-lane with the Ancient Apparition as well as the Lich, and a PA mid. This should be very interesting to see. Just going to quickly introduce the players from both teams. Over on the 4 position Ancient Apparition, we've got Dinosaur, Tournament Organizer. We've got Slazzy up on what looks like appears to be the mid lane Phantom Assassin, unless if she's actually going to the off lane. No, never mind, she's going mid. Pop-Tart up on the 1 position Luna, Dreaming Nub on the off lane Centaur Warrunner, Lord Zeolite up on the Lich. So he's going to be that 5 position role. Over on the enemy team for SSCT, NZ Rain, their drafter, over on the Nature's Prophet. Very interesting build coming up from him. Actually choosing to start with Robo the Magi as well as 3 Clarity, so that looks like it's a jungle Nature's Prophet. Solo going to be on that Lycan. That 1 position, Non-Lon over on the 4 position Shadow Shaman, Lucky Shot up on the Death Prophet, never mind the 5 position Shadow Shaman, and Mr. Right there over on the offline Tidehunter. So they're deciding to go for pure greed. Very surprised that they're choosing to go for the Robo the Magi, so it looks like Nature's Prophet's going to be going for that Bulldog build where he goes Treads into Maelstrom into the Blink Dagger to be able to be engaged in these early fights as quickly as possible. It does mitigate some of the greed coming up from the jungling Nature's Prophet, but if they decide to clash try, they could actually completely overrun SSCT. Shadow Shaman and Lycan. Shadow Shaman's a very powerful support hero, but on his own he isn't able to accomplish all too much, especially when it's 3v2. Since there's so many ways to interrupt is Shackle, Luna can simply save a Lucent Beam. Otherwise, Ancient Apparition can just right-click him down. So it's going to be the Centaur Warrunner going to be left up against this dual lane. He's going to be able to accomplish a huge amount. Actually chose to skill Return at 1. Bit surprising. You usually want to wait until you see what you're up against before you use your first skill point, just in case that they decide to dive you, so you could skill Hoof Stomp at 1. Looks like it's actually a dual lane with Lord Zeolite as well as Slazzy over in the mid lane. It's a great way to counteract the Death Prophet, since Death Prophet 1v1 wins the vast majority of matchups, aside from Puck, since he could phase shift the Crypt Swarm. Just because with Crypt Swarm you have an excellent way to harass the enemy hero, get creeps, as well as control the creep equilibrium. Once the creep wave pushes out, utilizing the superior movement speed from Witchcraft, you take runes, you utilize the runes to be able to continue spamming Crypt Swarm, and you repeat until the enemy hero is too low to be able to do it much against you. And you can even go for a few kill attempts. It's very easy to underestimate the power coming up from the DP. In the bottom lane with the Ancient Apparition as well as the Luna, they should be having a pretty good time up against the Tidehunter, but that being said, with a lack of hard CC, Tidehunter is going to be able to get a lot of free XP. He might not get as much gold as he'd like, just because the Ancient Apparition can zone him out. Actually, Ancient Apparition playing very far back, and Tidehunter is choosing to skill Gush at level 1. Bit of a huge misplay. At level 1, you always want to skill the Anchor Smash, since Gush offers you very little defensive capability. If they decide to dive you or go on you from 1, you could Gush 1, then you're going to walk away and get killed by everybody else. If you have the Anchor Smash, you could at least walk up, try to get a 2-3 man Anchor Smash, and then waddle away, utilizing the damage reduction from the Anchor Smash to prevent them from doing much damage, especially considering the fact that Luna actually chose to skill Lucent Beam at 1 instead of the Luna Blessing. So very interesting skill build orders coming out from both players. We've got the Ward Beam place right next to the safety ward from the Tidehunter. This is a very greedy safety ward. You usually never want to do this as an offlane player, since if the supports carry sentries, it's the first area they go to D-ward, just because it provides you too much, and so it's very easy to tell that they've warded, placed the safety ward there. You usually want to place it either here, or even there, to make it a lot safer. It's much more difficult for the enemy support players to be able to D-ward you, since if you don't have a safety ward as an offlane, that becomes a lot more difficult. They've actually rotated Shadow Shaman mid, so it's going to be 2v2, well, it's going to be the Lycanthrope up against the Centaur Warrunner. This is a massive misplay, even though Centaur Warrunner has actually chosen to go for 2 points up in return. Never mind, if he'd gone for 2 points up in double edge, he actually could make Lycan's life a living hell right now. Even then, he's trying to do the best he can. He actually missed his Hoof Stomp, so he's only got enough mana for 1 more Hoof Stomp. That's the recent nerf to Centaur Warrunner to mitigate his early and mid-game presence by increasing the mana cost on Hoof Stomp. Actually, N1 might be taking a fall, 1 more right click, and Lich is able to get that. Is way too far forward on his own, eats the Frost Blast as well as the Stifling Dagger. So a bit of a misplay coming out from the Shadow Shaman. He really should have backed off and waited for his Death Prophet to be there. Death Prophet forced to skill Grave Silence at 2 as well, instead of going for Witchcraft. Good level up coming out from the Death Prophet, since an early point of Grave Silence can be especially useful against a hero like a Lich if he's diving you to try to get that last Frost Blast off. But that being said, you want to get points up in the Witchcraft. You want to max out Witchcraft as soon as possible, just because level 1 Exorcism without sufficient points of Witchcraft is actually fairly ineffective. It doesn't give you as many spirits as you like. So Mr. Right there over in the Tidehunter He's playing very passive, which he should be. Going for 2 early points up in Kraken Shell, so he's at least recognized. But even though he started with a Stout Shield, it's a very interesting build coming up from the Tidehunter. Usually in the offlane time, you can simply just start with boots, or you simply start with a few gauntlets of strength, as well as some stat items, because the Stout Shield becomes obsolete the instant you hit level 3. In that case, a 250 gold, it could have gone towards your boots. Boots on an offlane, especially with a safety ward, much more difficult to kill. And you see the safety ward still hasn't been dewalled. It's a very aggressive pub ward being placed. Ancient Apparition not really doing all too much to zone him. He's just eating gushes to the face. So Tidehunter gone through a good chunk of his mana. He's also noticed he hasn't been ancient stacking. This is the primary reason why you draft Tidehunter as a dire offlaner. Is every minute on the minute, no matter how badly you're doing or how well you're doing, you always stack the ancient camp. So that means that if you're being completely zoned out, if you're not receiving any farm at all or any EXP, all you have to do is keep stacking the ancients. Once you hit level 5 or level 7, depending on what level your Anchor Smash is, you could go in and clear it out with the help of a support hero, especially if you have a support hero like a Shadow Shaman. It even might be worthwhile to blow Mass Serpent wards to help farm up the ancient stack. Get yourself the levels you need, get yourself the gold you need, especially since that pretty much ensures that you get your Arcane Boots or your Blink Dagger if you're on point with your ancient stacking. It could really help you become a huge threat in the mid game or when early engagements start to happen. Nature's Prophet, despite going for an incredibly greedy build, has not been punished. Yeah, we see he's picked up boots, so he's going for the Admiral Bulldog build. Actually doesn't have enough mana or the cooldown to be the summon treants. Shadow Shaman now rotated back top, recognizes they can't leave him alone up against Centaur Warrunner, even though Centaur Warrunner went for a very passive build with 2 points up in the return. If you do go for a point in return, usually it's a 1 point wonder, just because having a maxed out double edge or more points in the hoof stomp is a lot more important in the early stages of the game, especially for situations when you're left alone, like he was up against the Lycan. Whenever the support heroes rotate, once you have your Tranquil Boots, you walk up, double edge him in the face, walk back off, utilize your Tranquil regen, and it bullies them because it forces them to constantly be wary. They can't get be low HP without you going for a kill, and once you hit level 6, if you've gone for a few double edge trades, they're usually low enough you can simply stampede, walk over, land a hoof stomp and smack him down. It's the reason why Centaur Warrunner is such a powerful offlane hero against a passive support lane, just because you could completely bully the enemy carry and zone them out, especially if they're a melee carry. But that being said, PA off to a pretty good start. 20 last hits on her, 26 last hits on the Lycanthrope, so he hasn't actually been bullied all that much at all, despite the fact that Shadow Shaman has left the lane. Actually could be going for a kill attempt right now. Dreaming enough to be taking him full, with the Ether Shock being enough to be able to bring him down. Huge misplay coming out from him, being that far forward up against Shadow Shaman, who has to shackle, especially since he went for such a passive build. Especially with no boots or Tranquil Boots up on him, despite having the gold. Could have used the career there, or even walked over to the secret shop to go for it when the Lycanthrope was being zoned out earlier. 3 points up in the Kraken Shell from the Tidehunter, so he's going for an incredibly passive build. Usually when they go for 2 points up in the Kraken Shell ASAP with 1 point in the Anchor Smash at 1 to help you CS. Then you pick up a point in Gush at about level 5 and then choose to max out the Anchor Smash second. Just because 2 points is all you really need in the early stages of the game, having more points in the Anchor Smash lets you do a lot more damage. Especially since it does such a huge amount of AoE damage and also helps you farm Ancients. Going for a max Kraken Shell build means that while they can't kill you, you're not going to accomplish much once the mid kicks in, unless you play a bit more passive. Right now he doesn't have enough damage to go for a solo kill. Since his Anchor Smash only does 75 damage, going to 6 second cooldown. No, never mind, 7 seconds. So even with the Ravage, you won't have enough damage to go for a kill, as opposed to if he had 2 points up in the Ravage at level 7, he'd have 3 points up in the Anchor Smash. Utilize that to maybe go for a kill attempt or with the Ravage, especially if the enemy hero gets low, considering that Luna's a very squishy carry hero. Off the support heroes rotate. Death Prophet being heavily zoned out, so this dual lane doing a lot of work, just because Death Prophet knows that she can't get too far forward. She'll eat a Stifling Dagger, follow up with the Frost Blast, and then the PA Phantom Strike on top of that. Looks like PA most likely will be... he's going for a Battle Fury. So, a bit of an interesting build coming up from PA. Especially considering the fact that she started with 2 gauntlets of strength and 1 of the extra survivability. So no Stout Shield up on her, no boots. Most likely we'll be going for the max blur build second. Enzo Rain runs in, Dreaming Nub, caught up in the shackle as well as the trees. He could actually go for a kill attempt on Enzo Rain. Might be able to do so, trade his own life for a kill, and he does so. Good play coming out from him. Enzo Rain being a bit too cocky, going too far forward. You never want to expose yourself to a Centaur Warrunner when you're low HP, just because he's more than happy to die in order to get a kill on the jungler hero. And he's picked up his treads, but only level 4 on a Nature's Prophet who's been completely uncontested and left alone in the jungle. Very surprised he's such a low level. He should be at least 5.5 by now, with the fact that he hasn't been contested and that they haven't warded any of his camps. But he's got his treads up, so going forwards the Bulldog build wants to farm up his Maelstrom now. It gives you a lot more early to mid-game presence. It means that you're not just passively farming with the Hand of Midas. Hand of Midas, however, does give you a lot of map control. It's because it gives you a lot more levels, and once you have a lot more levels, not only are you able to have a stronger Wrath of Nature, it means that if you die, you've got a bank of reliable gold to be able to give you the ability to buy back. So it gives you much more late game presence, especially more split pushing. So it looks like SSCT really investing heavily into this all-out death ball push strat. They want to take fights and they want to take towers off the back of that. They're not really investing all too much into the late game. Lycanthrope, 8 minutes in, already has his boots as well as his Vladimir's offering. Probably wants to pick up something like a Medallion of Courage if he wants to play a bit more active, since it gives a substantial amount of DPS. Especially considering the fact that Lycanthrope, a few points up in Feral Impulse, hits obscenely hard, and with the recent nerf to Howl, looks like he's chosen not to go for that early point in Howl, choosing to max out Feral Impulse, so the old school Lycanthrope build. And with the level 4 Wolves, the crit built in, as well as the Feral Impulse, and the inbuilt crit he gets from Shapeshift, Medallion of Courage gives you a huge increase in DPS for the Lycanthrope. Probably wants to be picking up his Treads next, and then going towards his Necro 3. Lucky Shots. Not too sure what he's actually trying to accomplish. He's selling as many of his items as possible. Picks up the Void Stone, so it looks like he could be going towards a Bloodstone, unless he's trying to rush a Yule Scepter. Yule Scepter usually is the ideal build order for the Death Prophet, because it gives you everything you need. Bloodstone's usually a bit of an overkill item on the Death Prophet, unless you're doing extremely well. Just because you don't need any more mana regeneration besides what the Yule Scepter gives you. Ravage actually being blown on Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts has Eclipse, so Tide has to be very careful. Anchor Smash, unfortunately it's only level 1 Anchor Smash, but with the rotation is able to get a kill. Lucky Shots runs in, Dinosaurs also caught out, eats his way through the trees, but Cryptstorm's going to be coming off cooldown very shortly, and actually he's been body blocked a bit, and never mind, the Gush finishes him off. Exorcism is up, they have to go in for a push right now. They want to capitalize on this, just because in the mid lane, Slazzy is being able to free farm. Centaur Warrunner has been shut down significantly. Looks like he's going for a Vanguard. Incredibly inefficient item on the Centaur Warrunner. Vanguard's an item you buy, if you don't buy it by 8 minutes, you shouldn't go for it at all. There's very few heroes you could go for it on. Just because you could buy a Mechanism for about 150 more gold. It gives not only you more EHP than the Vanguard, it gives your team an extra buffer of 250 HP. So in the offlane hero on Centaur Warrunner particularly, your only item that you need to build and during the laning stage is the Tranquil Boots, and then you want to go to a Blink Dagger. While I say that, YOLO Solo goes for a kill, walks in and right clicks him down. Looks like lanes are falling apart from AGI and Dead Rain, utilizing the global presence of teleportation to go in for a kill. And while I say that, Lycanthrope actually goes for a solo kill. Chain Frost is also committed, so it's a 120-second window of opportunity they have when the big team fight ultimates for Team AGI are down. They don't want to take a fight with Luna being so low HP with an Eclipse, and especially since she doesn't have boots. She chose to go for a Hand of Midas. So they're going for a greedy. It's a bit ironic. They're the ones going for the greed, even though the Nature's Prophet was inside the jungle, so they had greedy lanes. They're going to lose another tower off the back of that, and that's the power of the Lycanthrope Death Ball. Once you take a single fight, or if you get the kill lead, you're able to take a lot of towers. You get a huge influx of gold. Nature's Prophet, 700 gold away from his Maelstrom. Once he picks that up, he starts to hurt a hell of a lot more. Also increases his split pushing presence, so you can use the AoE to help him push up the creep wave faster. Lucky Shots doing what he can to try to contain Slazzy. Slazzy choosing to completely rush the battlefield. Actually will have it very shortly. So that could be a 12-minute naked battlefield, unless he takes a fall, but that could be happening right now. Enlon runs up, turns him into a chicken. He's got the Hex. Mr. Right there goes in with the level 2 Anchor Smash. Ancient Apparition Ice Blast catches on 4, but unfortunately there's no one there to capitalize. And they're able to get a kill on the critical hero, which is that PA. Really delays her battle fury. She would have had a 12.5-minute battle fury if she'd been uncontested or able to farm at the same rate that she was going. Lycanthrope treads up on him, rotates over to the mid lane. They're going to go for Roshan. It looks like Slazzy says, fuck it, I'm going to go for a tread as well. Actually choosing to max out Phantom Strike as opposed to Blur. Very surprising, especially considering that he chose to go for the treads. Usually that's more of a phase boots build where you utilize the extra damage from phase boots and the extra attack speed from the Phantom Strike to be able to brutalize the enemy with coup de grace. Instead, when you go for the tread build, especially with the recent buff to Blur, but while I say that, 2-man Ravage, Mass Overlord's dropped on Slazzy, but he blinks out. Lich is going to be taking a fall with Cryptstorm. That's 3 big ultimates being blown. They're going to take that tier 1 mid as well. Goldgraph continuing to go in favor over Team SSCT. This is the reason why when you see a Lycanthrope, you start banning out these kind of pushing heroes, just because that Death Ball can start to spiral out of control. 6,000 gold lead in favor of SSCT, especially with the Roshan that they got for free. 5,000 EXP lead, so that means that they've got their ultimates up before the enemy team does, and they're more likely to get the level 2 ultimates up as well. Death Prophet, got a lot of gold. She has enough to finish her Yule Scepter if she wants to go for it, or she can start building towards her Bloodstone. Usually I'm not a big fan of the Bloodstone unless you're able to get it within 20 minutes, so if you're off to a great start. And with the start that she's having, she could actually decide to go for it. Gem of True Sight picked up very early on by Enlon. Great play coming up from him. This is something that a lot of Chinese teams used to do back in the Dota 1 days, in the early stage of the Dota 2, when Zhao 8 would play the Beastmaster. You pick up a Gem of True Sight very early on by getting a huge lead, then you walk around, you starve the enemy team by taking out all their vision, so you go around de-warding, you place up very aggressive wards, you take their farming towers, which is the tier 1 over in the safe lanes, and that opens up this portion of the map, and without the tier 1 mid, this entire area of the map, they no longer have vision of. It means that they can't farm their jungle, they can only farm the lanes so they push out. Yule Scepter farmed up on the Death Prophet, and that means you can use that to farm their jungle, farm all 3 lanes at once, and to eventually get your next set of items up. And once you have your next big set of items, then you could decide to go in for another push, take out the tier 2, get even further ahead. So a lot of macro play coming out from SSCT, utilizing the strength of their draft. AGI, they really need to take a team fight, but with the EXP difference, going to be very difficult. Enlon drops a very aggressive Observer Ward there, so that gives sight of the Ancients. They're really just starting to starve out the enemy team. He eats an Ice Blast to the face. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to kill him, unless there's one more tick of damage. So the right click coming out from the Lich would have done the trick, but unfortunately wasn't able to get there in time. Death Prophets there to provide the Crypt Swarm to provide them covering fire. Solo up with 3,400 gold. That's Necronomicon 2 with a few more right clicks. He'll be having Necro 3 up very shortly. A pre-20 minute Necro 3 is nothing to sneeze at, especially on the Lycanthrope, because Feral Impulse propagates over to your Necronomicon, so they get an increase in base damage as well as base attack. And when you shapeshift, they also get unit walking as well as haste and movement speed, unable to be snared. And Necronomicon 3 minions actually a huge amount of damage. Solo playing very YOLO right now, but he knows that with the Aegis the Immortal, even if they do kill him, which is very unlikely considering the shapeshift, the lack of hard CC, and the 2 supports really proving to be quite critical. He knows that he'll be able to reincarnate right back out and just run on out with the shapeshifts. So he knows he can play as aggressively as he wants. Since the 2 supports, they don't have enough lockdown to be able to go for him. Snares don't count for shit. They get up against Lycanthrope once he shapeshifts. Gains complete immunity to all snares, similar to what a haste rune does for you. Means that unless you have a bunch of hard CC, such as the Shackle from the Shadow Shaman on the enemy team, you're not going to be able to go for a kill attempt up on him. Centaur Warrunner, still no Tranquil Boots. For whatever reason, deciding not to opt for the most valuable item on the Centaur Warrunner. The reason why Tranquil Boots are so effective is if you're left alone against the enemy carry, you walk up to them, you double edge them, and you'll be able to walk away and continue to regen through the Tranquil Boots, so you could out-sustain them, and that really bullies them out, and also helps you with your farming speed. You can walk up and double edge a Creep Wave, Hoof Stomp, double edge, the Creep Wave's instantly gone, and since you haven't launched an attack, or if the Creep Wave hasn't hit you, your Tranquil Boots isn't broken, so you continue to regen through that. If he chooses to go for a Vanguard, he's not going to provide 0 impact in these team fights. They could just ignore him, or even just DPS him down. He doesn't have enough armor to make use of the HP he gets. The Medallion of Courage completely strips away the armor that he gets, his natural armor. And in terms of EHP, armor is a lot more valuable than HP after you reach about 1,000, and considering the fact that Centaur Warrunner has such high strength gain, and against the huge amount of physical DPS coming out from the Lycanthrope, you usually want to stack armor as opposed to stacking HP. It's another reason why Tranquil Boots is superior to the Vanguard build. It provides you that +4 armor, which doesn't seem like much, but can actually prove to be quite significant. Blink Deck up and Mr. Right there, catches out 2, followed with the Ravage. Chain Frost being used, but there's a Creep Wave right there. Very unlucky bounce on the time, but he's going to live. Eclipse being committed. They're able to kill the Death Prophet, who committed a bit too far forward. No, Mass Serpent Wards also committed. Huge misplays coming out from SSCT. They can simply farm up those Mass Serpent Wards. They now have a 2-minute window of opportunity where the enemy team cannot push. And so now they could actually look to group up as 5, take some tier 1 towers of their own. But while I say that, Nature's Prophet doing what he does best, being a rat, split pushing over in the bottom lane, so he knows that his team is at the weaker level right now, just because they don't have their big team fight ultimates, and because they've taken a few unnecessary losses. So he knows that if they group up and take a tower, he's going to at least make it a trade, at least go for some chip damage. Good recognition coming out from Luna, popping his ultimate right as the Creep Wave was being snared up by the Chain Frost, able to utilize that to quickly kill the Death Prophet. One of the things you have to keep in mind with the Luna Eclipse is it's based off your vision. So if one of the advanced things you could do with Luna is if you juke enemy heroes through trees, and even if there's a creep wave, if you position yourself that they're the only unit that you see, then the Eclipse will all hit them. Dreaming Nub, eating a lot of damage. Solo going to eat an Ice Blast to the face. He's going to actually chosen to go for a BKB, so he's going for more of a conventional carry build. Not too sure how I feel about this necessarily, just because with the Aegis advantage that he always has, while I say that, Lich trying to do some cheeky juking. You don't necessarily need a BKB this early on. If you had a Necro 3, you could essentially go for high ground at this time. Shadow Shaman's down. That's a gem on deck. If they don't pick it up, that's a huge investment being completely wrong. Lucky Shots runs forward. He decides to pick it up. No, it turns out no one's spotted him. They go for a kill over on Death Prophet as well. That's a gem as well as one of their core heroes gone. Slazzy's leading the chase. He actually can continue to chase this. Decides not to go do so. He almost has his Battle Fury, so it's going to be a 19-20 minute Battle Fury. While I say that, Luna's cannibalizing his farm. And Nature's Prophet over in the bottom lane. He's almost going off for his Blink Dagger, so that Bulldog build doing work. It mitigates the greed factor from the Nature's Prophet, and it really capitalizes on his strengths, which is the global presence and the split pushing pressure he could apply, even without items, just by summoning trees and being able to throw in a few cheeky right clicks. So NZ Rain doing what he can, despite having a bit of a bad start. His farm wasn't the greatest, and he did feed a kill over to the Centaur Warrunner. So it looks like it's just a casual ring of health over in the Centaur Warrunner. Looks like he's saving up for a Blink Dagger. Drawback to this again is for the same price you go for the Tranquil Boots, which also gives you movement speed. And the Ring of Health isn't really going to build into anything. I guess you could turn it to a hood later on, but that's something that you can't really afford to be thinking about right now. You need a mech before you need a pipe. Lich takes a fall, drops a Chain Frost. Is going to take a fall to the solo anyway. Doesn't have the Aegis. The Aegis wore off. While I say that, Ravage pops over and Dreaming Nub, as well as AA Dinosaur. A lot of TP rotations coming in. It's actually a point-blank TP rotation from Slazzy. Death Prophet torn apart by the Double Edge. Actually buys back. Very strange plays coming up from both teams. Massive Walls dropped as well as the Eclipse. Eclipse cleans up the Tidehunter, who without the Ravage isn't able to accomplish all too much. Luna eating a low damage from Massive Walls. Actually could be taking for one more volley. Never mind. Nature's Prophet decided to commit for this over on Slazzy, but Slazzy with a few points up in the blur. Even with 1 point, the 20% evasion could be enough to at least draw him back. Drive him back. He's got the Gem of True Sight up on him. He's got the Battle Fury as well if he decides to build it. And so the Death Ball push coming out from SSCT, while they did have a huge early game lead, they have to keep in mind that they've actually thrown away a massive influx of gold, giving away the gem, giving away a lot of kills, buying back, and not accomplishing all too much. They were able to get a tower, but Lycanthrope could have gone that tower without the buyback. Death Prophet is actually incredibly poor, but that being said, they're able to pick up all the tier 2s in the span of a minute. Death Prophet will be able to do a bit more chip damage. They should be able to defend it successfully, or at least go in for the deny. But it looks like Nature's Prophet's committing to this. They summon some trees. He's got Blink Dagger up on him, so he's got that ability to be able to evade his enemy, blink out into trees, or just simply blink out and run away. Forced out a Glyph as well, so there's a 5-minute window where they could choose to go for some split pushing, get some chip damage. Lycanthrope, he says, Necro books for scrubs, I'm just going to build damage. Looks like he could be going towards the MKB, since Daedalus will be completely wasted on the Lycanthrope. You have an inbuilt 1.6 crit when you shapeshift, so you don't need any other crit items. You don't actually need any damage items at all on Lycanthrope. Building the Assault Cuirass will probably give you more damage than any damage items than building raw damage would. Just because you have a lower base attack time when you're in shapeshift form. The armor makes you a lot more survivable. Negative armor, especially in conjunction with the medallion. But while I say that, Dreaming Nub eating so many abilities to the face. The Graveside's about to land a Hoofstomp, never mind. Shackled up and takes a fall. And Lycanthrope kills the PA and starts knocking on your door. The big bad wolf. If he had the Necro 3 right now, he'd be able to take that tier 3 and start nibbling on the racks. But that being said, still able to do a lot. It looks like Luna gets taken apart by NZ Rain. Showing off that Blink Dagger, he's actually TPing over. Oh, never mind, he decided to TP back to help this creep wave push. Could have actually gone to the top lane. Ancient Apparition can't do anything to stop him. Actually, looks like Ancient Apparition chose to max out Cold Feet. Very old school Ancient Apparition build. The new skill build for Ancient Apparition is either you max out the Chilling Touch, just because it will give you a lot more reliable damage, or you choose to max out the Ice Vortex in rare occasions where your team has a massive amount of AoE magic damage abilities. So for instance, if you have say Shadow Shaman with the Ether Shock, or a Sand you could follow up with the Epicenter. Or if you decide to go in for some crazy strategies, as if you have a Skywrath Mage with the Ancient Seal, or the Elder Titan with the Natural Order, you usually want to max out the Chilling Touch. It's going to provide your team a lot more mid-game presence. And if you're able to land Chilling Touch, if you're able to provide that buff to your entire team, it's a substantial increase in DPS, especially this early on. And a few right clicks with the Chilling Touch is enough to 2 or 3 shot enemy heroes. Luna choosing to go for more greed, picked up a Yasha. Yasha is actually considered to be a bit of a farming item on a hero like a Luna. Even though it does provide you a lot of mid-game stats, the fact that it doesn't actually help you in team fights, since all they have to do is stun you, blow you up with their spells, or catch you out with the silence so you can't eclipse. Luna wants to go for a BKB as soon as possible. Actually, if you had finished her BKB, they could choose to try to hold high ground. While I say that, looks like Roshan will be up very, very shortly. And the Dire team is spotting it out. They're dropping the Observer Ward in advance. Non-Lon being pretty on point. Looks like he's going for a 4-star. Lycanthrope gets a free kill on the Lich as well as taking the tier 3. So he's making his build work, even though he's going for a bit of an unconventional build, but just by stacking damage. and going for traditional carry items, he's making it work just because the Shapeshift provides you so much time on target. You'll Scepter providing a bit of space for a Centaur Warrunner who's only just picked up his blink, there a few minutes ago. He showed it off in the last engagement, blinked into 3, wasn't able to land a hoof stomp, and was completely torn apart. Good recognition coming out from the Lycanthrope, choosing to focus fire the range racks as opposed to the melee, since the melee racks has a lot more regen, whereas the range racks does not regenerate at all. So any chip damage on the range racks is permanent. They really need to drop both the ward as well as the sentry there if they want any hope of preventing any kind of split push. Just because at any point Nature's Prophet can TP in to the top lane and provide a lot of split pushing presence, they decide to go for a lot of greedy items. Battle Fury on the PA, while it is all in good if you're able to pick it up very early, if he hadn't died in the mid lane, he would have had a 12.5 minute Battle Fury, so by now he would have his BKB up, or the next item that he'd be going for, so he could be going for perhaps the Helmet of the Dominator. But they're going to be losing Roshan, Howl with the minions as well, so Shackle and the Medallion providing so much DPS. Medallion of Courage is a great item for taking Roshan, since Roshan has a huge amount of HP, so the only way to decrease his EHP is to negate his armor. Aegis the Immortal just been left on the ground, Solo decides to pick it up. And it looks like he's got his MKB flying out on him, so massive amount of DPS coming out from him. Very surprised he chose not to go for the Abyssal Blade. Usually the item you want to go for if you're going for this kind of conventional right-click carry Lycan build. Ancient Apparition Ice Blast completely whiffs, that's a 30-second window of opportunity they have before we'll be up again. Titan does Blink and Mech, and so there's a massive amount of teamfight presence coming out from SSCT, just because none of the supports are rich enough to go for a Mech yet. It looks like Lich is the one stuck on Mech duty, but he hasn't found much farm. Chosen to offer a few more points in the Frost Armor, so good recognition from the Lich, knowing that he can't go for a greedy sacrifice build just because he knows that they're fighting a lot more, and the Lich Frost Armor will provide a lot more teamfight presence. So you see Luna right now eats 2 Crypt Swarms to the face, drops to about less than half HP. Without a BKB, she will die very quickly, and unlike a Juggernaut, where the Omni Slash makes you invulnerable, Eclipse, if you die, Eclipse instantly ends, so you want to have that BKB so you can run in these team fights and be completely unhindered, drop the Eclipse, deal as much damage as possible, and then utilize that first strike advantage to be able to kill the enemy team, or kill as many of the key heroes as possible so you can force them to rout. Then you want to go in for kills. Because some questionable build orders coming out from his teammates. Hasn't really been able to accomplish all too much with a Blink. Ravage catches out 4! That's a fantastic Ravage coming out from Mr. Right there. Lozio Light going to be taking a fall. One more right click. Lycanthrope going to be able to kill Slazzy. And that looks like game right there. When you lose 3-4 heroes up against a Lycanthrope, when you lose 1 hero against a Lycanthrope, you effectively can lose a tower. Especially with considering the amount of pushing presence they have with the Exorcism, the Death Prophet, the Massive Wards coming out from the Shadow Shaman, as well as the minions from Nature's Prophet with the Hell coming out from the Lycanthrope. They could actually potentially go for 2 sets of Rex, even Megas, or pressure the tier 3, just because they have the Aegis the Immortal up on solo. He could probably take out a set of Rex on his own. And GG being called, 26 minutes into the game. AGI recognize they've given far too much far too early. 20,000 gold lead, 26 minutes into the game, and 15,000 EXP lead. It's just been taking a quick break, and we'll be right into game number 2.